Welcome to the world where we fight to the finish, and at the heart of it is one recognizable image. Originators, titans of business, brand architects, respected since 9/7 skies the limit.
Guys, welcome to the 8th episode of MMA Talk Canada. Here again with my good buddy Saad Sulman, and today we're gonna be breaking down UFC 158. Before we get into the podcast, I'll give a shout out to my buddy Chris Manassian. Check out his stuff, Fight or Flight D. Links in the description box, and the music is by D.One. So Saad, what do you think of this card? It's pretty good, top to bottom, really stacked card, and in our home country of Canada, can't really ask for much more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anytime UFC fights, it's a pretty big deal, especially in Canada. I'm a little upset the fact that Roy McDonald's been fighting. I've seen so many of his fights live.
Yep.
So it's a little unfortunate, but at the same time, you're still getting good quality fights. I'm really interested in the Ricci fight, especially because I think that he could really make a name for himself as long as he continues to improve with GSP and McDonald in his training camp. It should be an interesting card. I'm also looking forward to the Ellenberger Marquardt fight, the Condon Hendricks, and obviously the main event.
Yeah, well said, Saad. We're getting into the first fight right here. We got Mike Ricci versus Colin Fletcher, and now both these guys were runner-ups on The Ultimate Fighter. Fletcher being a runner-up on the Tough Smashes, which was one of my favorite seasons besides Tough Live, Faber vs. Cruz. And then we got Mike Ricci, who was a runner-up in the welterweight division of Tough 16 Nelson versus Carwin. Now, if we both seen in that fight, them both get dominated on the ground. They got taken down and just pretty much laid on. And I think Ricci's going to have the advantage in this fight because he is dropping back down to 155. And Fletcher, even though he's a really tall guy, he doesn't have much weight to him. So I think Ricci is going to be able to dictate where the fight goes. Fletcher's got great submissions, and Fletcher's also got really fluid Muay Thai. But Ricci, he's training with the best at TriStar Gym, and I really think he's going to be able to pull off the win here in his hometown of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. How about you, Saad? How do you see this one going down?
Very similar to what you just said. I just think this is an interesting matchup to put as a pay-per-view opener.
Yep.
Mainly because they're both typically coming off of losses, although they were at the tough finale. I kind of like to give Ricci more the benefit of the doubt, not just because he's Canadian, but mainly because he was fighting at welterweight against a seasoned wrestler. I think Ricci's very well-rounded. He showed that in all of his fights during the season of tough. And I think now that he's going to be at his proper weight class, he's going to be faster and stronger, and I think he'll be able to take down Freak Show. So it should definitely be an interesting fight. Just, I guess the main reason why they're putting it as a pay-per-view opener is because Ricci's hometown, and I think mainly because Rory had to drop out. So I think this is, I can't remember what the number was, but I know Ricci's a veteran at the Bell Center. He's been in the Bell Center plenty of times to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be, I think that's why they're catering right to the home crowd, and I really think that he's going to pull off the win. I don't even see it being close. I really think Ricci's going to pull it out, mainly because I think he will be the stronger fighter, and I wasn't too impressed with how Fletcher looked against Norman Park. Maybe that's just because Norman Park was that good, and maybe Fletcher, I think, needs a little more seasoning. So I really think Ricci, because of who he trains with GSP, with McDonald up in TriStar, he's best friends with Roy McDonald.
Yep.
These guys are all just tweeting pictures together and going out together. So I really see that he's gonna pull out the win, probably by KO. Like, I like Freak Show. He's a gutsy fighter with a unique personality, but I really think Ricci's gonna win this one.
Yeah, even the wins, the quality wins that Ricci had on The Ultimate Fighter, he had some really quality wins. These guys are 170 pounds too. He beat he beat Josh Hill, and the guy who was in the semifinals. It was another very high quality opponent. So it's gonna be a good one, this fight, to start off the main card. All right, so next fight we're gonna get into is Nick Ring versus Chris Camozzi, and Chris Camozzi is kind of making a name for himself here at 185. Just coming off a big win against, who was it against, Odd? The Brazilian?
Luis Kane.
Yeah, Luis.
Apparently he doesn't want to be called Kane anymore, so Luis Kane.
All right, so a big win there, and Nick Ring is always since he came into the UFC, has been a great fighter. Very consistent with his wins. Only lost coming to Tim Boetsch, and no shame in that loss. Tim Boetsch is one of the best middleweights in the world. But I do think Nick Ring will get the decision win here. I think he just has more experience against more high-level quality opponents, and I think he outpoints them everywhere and gets the unanimous decision win. How about you, Saad?
Yeah, well, before I even get to my pick, the fighter who Richie knocked out was Neil Magny.
Yeah, Neil Magny, yep.
John Manley.
Yeah, Neil Magny.
Let me just throw that in there.
Yeah, John Manley's a cool dude. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, he knocked out Neil Magny. But for this fight, actually, this losing to against Karma, as you mentioned, Komosi is on a nice 3-fight win streak. His opponent level obviously isn't too great, but I don't think Rings is that great either. It should be an interesting test for them both to see where they stack, whether they're just going to be against mid-level fighters or whether there'll be anything of note. Ring is an exciting Canadian fighter. But I really believe that he got lucky in his decision over Court McGee. Mainly, I think it was a hometown decision, right? Fighting in Calgary. Just generally because of the story of, preventing a robbery and coming through with that. I really think that Ring is a good fighter, and so is Komosi, so it's going to be a really close fight, like back and forth. Probably a grind-em style, just given how they are.
Yep.
Like, I really see a lot of dirty boxing going on. I'm going to pick Ring to win the decision, but it will be close.
Yeah, I wrote down this fight's going to be a really close fight. I think it's going to be a good one. I hope Ring is able to, have another good stand-up fight against Chris Komosi. And Chris Komosi's stand-up looked well improved in his fight against Louis in October of 2012. So the next fight here we got is Jake Ellenberger and Nate the Great Marquardt. Nate Marquardt coming back from his long layoff from the UFC, but during his layoff, he hasn't been just been on the couch eating chips. He's been doing a lot of good fights. Won the Strikeforce welterweight title. He beat Tyrone Woodley in a great fight, an epic knockout. And this is gonna be a great fight. I'm a big fan of Jake Ellenberger. I'm predicting Jake Ellenberger to get the split decision win here. That's why it's gonna be a really, really close fight because these guys are very, very similar. Got great wrestling and knockout power. But I think it's gonna be a great fight. I can't really say how this fight's gonna go down, just the way it's gonna do. Stand up, go to the ground. I think that the wrestling is so good that they might be able to cancel each other out wrestling, and I think it's going to be another decision win. I think a lot of these fights on the main card are going to be decision wins, actually. So I have Jake Ellenberger, split decision. How about you, Saad?
Well, I don't know how you could predict a split decision. You're pretty much betting on the fact that one judge is going to get it wrong.
I'm just saying it's going to be that close. It's going to be that close.
Given the state of judging in MMA. Here's the whole thing. Anyways, back to the fight. This should be an interesting fight, mainly because Marquardt was the former #1 contender at middleweight, former Strikeforce champion. He's taking on a relatively, I think, shorter notice. I don't think he had a full camp, mainly because he just came out of the Safdie fight. But I guess he couldn't resist the big fight, especially since he lost this in Strikeforce to Safdie. I don't know if that speaks volumes to how good Safdie is, or if Marquardt just wasn't himself in that fight.
Yep.
But he did look, as you mentioned, amazing against Woodley. That was an amazing fight. Like, those guys just kept going at it. On the other side, Ellenberger has been on a tear, except for his loss to Catman. But if you look at it, I guess, a little closely, he
was beating him up.
Full fight with Diego Sanchez as well. So I really like Ellenberger as well, as you mentioned. He's a good fighter, but I think at times he can get careless, like opting to, I guess, use the words of that tough guy. He's opting to bang, bro. And that might be a problem in Marquardt's range. Marquardt can't pack a lot of power. They're both wrestlers, so I think this is going to be a stand-up battle. Against both, like, the heavy leather. The thing with Marquardt, I think Safdie showed how you have to beat him, and that's to pick him apart from the outside with leg kicks. But the issue is that Ellenberger is not that tall. I don't think he'll be able to control the distance, as Safdie was able to do. and I think he's going to get inside, and I think that's going to be a problem for him. It could potentially be a decision, could be close. He could go either way because both of them are really powerful. So I'm going to pick Marquardt just to keep it interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next fight, we got Carlos Condit versus Johnny Hendricks. And then both these guys fighting again in Montreal. They both fought at UFC 154. And this would be a great fight. Carlos Condit originally supposed to fight Rory McDonald, and Johnny Hendricks originally supposed to fight Jake Ellenberger. A little mixed match in the thing with Rory McDonald getting hurt, but we still got a great fight out of this one. So like I said, a really close fight. I think Condit will be able to avoid the big left hand of Johnny Hendricks. We've seen in the fight against Nick Diaz against Condit, which I thought Nick Diaz won, by the way. Carlos Condit was able to avoid the big shots of Nick Diaz, and I'm thinking Carlos Condit might be able to even finish him in the later rounds of the fight. I don't know. I think it's going to be a great, really close fight, but I do think Condit will get the win, maybe late stoppage or unanimous decision. How about you, Saad?
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is a good consolation fight, given that we lost Rory McDonald. But I take this fight any day. It's an exciting matchup, especially given how well-rounded Condit is.
Yep.
I really have a feeling that we haven't quite seen all of Hendricks, given that he's been knocking everyone out, like they knocked out Finch and when he knocked out Catman, we didn't really get to see too much of it. The one fight that we did see a lot of him, actually I wasn't too impressed in the Koscheck fight.
Mm-hmm.
It was a close fight. I really can't remember how I scored it. I know it was close, but either way, like, Koscheck is a tough out for everyone, even though that Robbie Lawler just finished him. Mm-hmm. But, when Hendricks fought him, I think he was still on top of his game. This is going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a grind mode. But the thing is, Hendricks is a tough wrestler, and we haven't seen much of his wrestling yet. And even if he does take Condit down, I don't see him controlling him. Like, Condit's been in there with GSP too, and he knows how to take a punch, and he knows how to work from his guard. Like, he's very well-rounded. Like, Condit gets, I guess, I think he deserves more respect than he actually gets. Mm-hmm. He's such an amazing striker. He's amazing on the ground. He's just got a good game overall. But that being said, I am going to pick Hendricks, mainly because he does have that power hand. It's kind of like Hendo, right? He has that hand. You can turn anyone's lights out as soon as it lands. Like, just seeing Finch go flying, seeing Catman go flying.
Yep.
I don't see how anyone could stop that. So I think he's going to be able to do that. He'll find a way to maybe throw in a punch, but if not, I think he's going to grind out his decision. When just knowing that he's that close away from a title shot, if he wins this, he's beat everybody else.
Yep.
And I know he might even play more conservatively. You never know. It's kind of unfortunate, but I think that he's kind of been placed in that situation. He's got to win, or else I don't see him smelling a title shot then, right?
Exactly. If Johnny Hendricks wins this fight, I don't see how he can't get a title shot. Like, he's ran through the whole division. Only loss coming to Rick Story back in December of 2010. And then since then it's been on a tear. So I don't see, if he wins this fight, how he does not get a title shot. And Carlos Condit, if he wins this fight, do you think he'll get a title shot, Saad?
No, he won't get a title shot. I think they'll find somebody else to match up GSP or maybe Anderson.
Possibly.
But even if Hendricks wins, like, we all say that he should, and that's right, he deserves to get a title shot. But given the UFC matchmaking lately, it's hard to say. If Hendricks wins, there really is nobody at welterweight, and if Anderson is fighting John Jones or whoever Anderson's fighting, I don't see the GSP Anderson's fight happening even this year, maybe. So then obviously Hendricks will be in there, but what if he loses? They're not going to give it to Condit, even though Condit almost did pull off the upset against GSP.
Yep.
Like, he was a couple of ground and pound punches away from finishing that thing. But I don't think anyone's excited to see another Condit fight with GSP, just because GSP did win it handily. He won 4 rounds out of 5, right?
Yep. Yeah, this is going to be a great fight. I look forward to seeing Roy McDonald in there again, hopefully getting his revenge against Carlos Condit. All right, so we'll go into the main event now. George St-Pierre versus Nick Diaz. And now I've been waiting for this fight for a long time. Back in 2011 while I was waiting for this fight. And then GSP having to pull out just weeks before the fight with his knee injury. Now, I'm a huge George St-Pierre fan. Uriah Faber, GSP, my favorite fighters, but I'm also a Nick Diaz fan as well. But I see this being a very exciting fight. Now, if George St-Pierre chooses to stand and bang with Nick Diaz, we're going to get a good fight. And if GSP decides to take Nick Diaz down, we're also going to get a good fight as well, because Nick Diaz is also very good on the ground. Same with George St-Pierre. So hopefully we get to see a mix of both worlds here. Hopefully we get to see some rounds on the ground and some on the feet, because it's going to be a very, very high-paced fight. All of Nick Diaz's fights are very high-paced, because he brings such, how do I say it, he has so much cardio, so much gas in the tank, where he can push people beyond their limits and sometimes break people. We've seen the fight against BJ Penn when Nick Diaz would have him up against the cage, and you just throwing body shot after body shot, head back to the head, body head, and he was just going just crazy on him, and just he's able to break his opponents because they can't keep up with his pace. And I think George St-Pierre will be able to keep up with the pace. And I see George St-Pierre not finishing Nick Diaz, unfortunately. I see him winning another decision here. And GSP's most likely going to get some slack for that. Hey, Saad? You think if he doesn't finish this fight, he's not going to get the recognition from the fans of just being, a safe fighter?
I don't know. GSP always gets recognition, regardless of how much the fans whine and complain. They love GSP.
Exactly.
Like his last fight with Condit proved it. Like, he can be exciting. You know what I mean? Like, one of the things that he mentioned due to his long layoff is the fact that he got his hunger back for the fight game. Like, sitting on top of the mountain for that long without being tested, I guess makes you complacent. And I think that GSP realized that he needs to find that drive again, and he did find it due to his long layoff. I think he's going to bring that into the fight with Diaz here. And to the point that you mentioned about Diaz, actually, his cardio is through the roof. There was just a video posted about Diaz doing 25-minute.
Yep, just saw that.
With the punching bag, yeah. With the speed bag, actually. He's going for 25 minutes straight on his speed bag, which is insane.
Yep.
That's the length of a fight, and he's going at a speed bag constantly for that long. That tells you how good his dancing is. But, like, GSP don't slouch either. Like,
nope.
He's just got amazing cardio as well. He trains every facet of MMA and gymnastics and whatever else he's doing, But that being said, I don't know what more needs to be said about this fight than what was already said during the media conference call the other day.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, yeah. Well, Diaz was classic Diaz. And GSP actually sounded irritated for once.
Mm-hmm.
Calling Diaz at one point uneducated.
Yep.
Will that translate into this fight? I don't think so. You don't get to GSP's level without the sort of Zen-like mentality that he has. And I see him dominating Diaz. Diaz may try to taunt him and box him up, but I see GSP taking him down, controlling him, landing elbows, then getting back up and repeating it constantly. Like, I think that Ben Henderson kind of shows the blueprint how to beat a Diaz brother.
Mm-hmm.
Although Nate is a different fighter than Nick is arguably the better fighter out of the two brothers. I think Ben Henderson showed him a slight blueprint there. And I think he's going to kind of repeat that performance. He's going to take him apart from the outside, kind of like how Condit did, to take him down.
Mm-hmm.
Diaz has amazing jiu-jitsu. Like, that's what he trains at. He's a great in jiu-jitsu. But GSP knows how to avoid those submissions. And I think he's going to keep grinding away at it. He's going to frustrate. Expect Diaz to throw a middle finger in there somehow.
Most likely.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be an exciting fight. Like, nobody will be complaining after this fight.
Exactly. Some people have been tweeting on Twitter that they got their $54.99 worth just on the press conference alone, because it was that. If you haven't seen that, take a look at it. There's some highlights on UFC. The UFC posted. Just take a little look at that before you watch this fight, because it definitely got me amped up. I think there was all 6 welterweights on the thing, and they got about 2 questions each, and the rest was just GSP and Diaz going at it. So right before we end this podcast, I'm just going to go through the preliminary card real quick. I'm just going to go through all the people I think I'm going to win. I got George Roop, T.J. Dillashaw, Rick Story, John McDessie, Jordan Meehan, Carvalho, and Patrick Cote winning their fights. Any fights in particular you're looking forward to on that preliminary card, Sod?
Darren Cruikshank. Who's he fighting again?
He's fighting John McDessie.
John McDessie. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fight. I actually think that although McDessie is a really good, capable fighter, and he proved that in the South fight, I really think Darren Cruikshank has been coming into his own lately. Arguably, he even beat what's his name? Mike Ricci.
Yep.
And Ricci's actually, the interesting thing is he actually plays higher on the card than him. I know that he's probably not too thrilled about that.
Yeah.
His opponent that he beat actually plays higher than him, but that's just how things work. It's all about opportunities. And I think Cruikshank proved that in his last fight when he just beat up Henry Martinez. He beat him up.
Yeah.
And I think I don't see him beating up McDessie, but it's going to be interesting. But I'm really looking forward to that one. It's going to be a war.
Yeah, this is going to be a great card. I'm really looking forward to George St-Pierre, all the good fights, all the Canadians in the card. It's good to see a lot of Canadian talent on a card for once, because we don't get to see it that often with all these other cards. We're seeing a lot of Brazilians, but it's really nice to see, some Canadians. So any final thoughts on the card, Sod?
No, I'm just looking forward to Saturday night. Can't come sooner.
Exactly, guys. So there you have it. There's the 8th episode of MMA Talk Canada. Enjoy the fights on Saturday.